The overhead lights in the office hummed with a false sense of cheerfulness as I sat there, my heart sinking with each word. It was the quarterly bonus review, a ritual I usually looked forward to. For 3 years straight, I'd been the top performer in my division, consistently exceeding sales targets by 150% or more. My name was Seline, and I'd dedicated 4 years to this major technology consulting firm, pouring my soul into impossible projects, bringing in 6 new enterprise accounts this quarter alone. The bonus, a substantial $72,000, was supposed to be automatic for anyone hitting my numbers. It was enough to pay off my student loans, maybe even take my first real vacation in years, but then, Gregory Thirstston, our division head, cleared his throat. This quarter, we're recognizing Isabelle Carrian. My blood ran cold. Isabelle, a 23-year-old summer intern who'd been with the company for exactly 11 weeks. My bonus, the $72,000 that should have been unequivocally mine, was being handed to her. Gregory painted a picture of exceptional promise and innovative thinking. Isabelle sat there, genuinely surprised but pleased. She had no idea. None of us did, really, except for Gregory. The conference room felt suffocating. It wasn't just the money, it was the blatant, public slap in the face. For years of staying late, taking weekend calls, turning around impossible projects. All of it meant nothing when measured against one man's blatant favoritism. A quiet, searing anger began to build, a resolve that felt colder and more dangerous than any outward fury. My journey in this company was built on sheer, unadulterated grit. I wasn't born into connections, I forged them, one challenging client, one impossible deadline at a time. I started in a demanding junior role, learning every intricate detail of our consulting frameworks. While others clocked out at 5 p.m., I was often still there, debugging complex software integrations, or crafting detailed client proposals. I believed in the power of genuine expertise, of being the person who could reliably pull solutions out of nowhere when everything else failed. I was the one who volunteered for overtime projects, covered for colleagues during vacations, and absorbed extra responsibilities whenever departments were understaffed. My contributions had become so consistent, so reliable, they had, in a way, become invisible. Management just assumed I would always be available, always capable of handling whatever crisis emerged. Then came Gregory Thirstston. He was charming, politically astute, and obsessed with appearances. He valued loyalty over competence, especially if that loyalty stemmed from personal connections. And his connection to Isabelle? I'd pieced it together quietly. Isabelle mentioned growing up in Millbrook Falls, population 8,000. A remote, unheard-of place. 2 weeks before the bonus announcement, I overheard Gregory on a personal call, talking about visiting his mother in Millbrook Falls for her birthday. Same tiny town, same impossible coincidence. When I casually asked Isabelle about her hometown, she mentioned her family had known the Thirstston family forever, Gregory's family. The bonus wasn't about performance metrics or innovation. It was about hometown loyalty, wrapped up in corporate language. This wasn't just a boss playing favorites. This was a fundamental betrayal of the meritocracy I believed in. It shifted how I saw everything. Every interaction, every decision, every casual conversation suddenly had layers I missed before. And it ignited a cold, strategic fire within me. The immediate aftermath of the bonus announcement was a strange mix of forced smiles and hushed whispers. Isabelle, bless her naive heart, approached me, genuine concern etched across her face. "Seline, I hope you know I had no idea about any of this," she said quietly. "I feel terrible that you didn't get recognized, too. You've been so generous with your time, teaching me everything." I looked at her earnest expression and felt something shift. She really didn't know. She wasn't part of a conspiracy. She was just a young woman caught in something much bigger. "Congratulations, Isabelle," I told her, meaning it more than she could have understood. "You absolutely deserve recognition for your hard work." Meanwhile, Gregory's favoritism became impossible to ignore. He gave Isabelle the easiest client accounts, praised her for suggestions others had made weeks earlier, and shielded her from demanding customers and complex technical challenges. She was being set up to succeed in ways she couldn't even recognize. But what Gregory didn't anticipate was my reaction. I'm not someone who explodes when angry. I don't storm into HR offices or send company-wide emails exposing unfairness. I've learned that the most devastating responses often look like kindness from the outside. The injustice escalated quietly. I, the company's indispensable backbone, was being systematically undervalued, while an unproven intern was being fast-tracked based purely on nepotism. Clients I usually handled effortlessly started experiencing minor delays because I was no longer putting in the unseen extra hours. Technical problems I would normally resolve festered over weekends. Project timelines that depended on my weekend availability began slipping. The seamless operation everyone had taken for granted started developing obvious cracks. The division's reputation for flawless service began showing wear. Gregory, blind to the true cause, just pushed Isabelle harder, unwittingly digging a deeper hole. My plan wasn't about destruction, it was about demonstration. It was about allowing the natural consequences of incompetence and misplaced loyalty to reveal themselves. The first step involved Isabelle herself. "I've been thinking about your development," I told her the following Monday, perching on the edge of her workspace. "You're clearly management material, and I think you could benefit from some advanced training." Her face lit up immediately. "Really? I'd love that, Seline. You're honestly the smartest person on this whole team." Over the next week, I began what I called Isabelle's accelerated learning program. I taught her our most sophisticated client management techniques, the complex analytical frameworks that took me 2 years to master, and the intricate technical specifications even senior consultants struggled with. I showed her how to build comprehensive project timelines, explained nuanced relationship dynamics, and walked her through advanced negotiation tactics. Isabelle absorbed everything eagerly. She had genuine intelligence and impressive determination. Under normal circumstances, she might have developed into an excellent consultant, given proper time and mentorship. But these weren't normal circumstances. Gregory had decided she was ready for major responsibilities immediately, not based on her actual capabilities, but on his personal affection for her family. I began recommending Isabelle for increasingly complex assignments. Gregory approved every recommendation enthusiastically. He was so pleased to see his protégé receiving opportunities that he never questioned whether she was actually prepared for them. Meanwhile, I made another strategic adjustment. I stopped being the company's invisible safety net. For years, I'd been the person who stayed late to fix problems that emerged after hours. I'd taken calls during weekend family gatherings and answered urgent emails while sitting in restaurants. I decided to test the assumption that I would always be available. I started leaving the office at exactly 5:30. When weekend emergencies arose, I responded Monday morning with apologies about being unreachable. When colleagues asked me to cover additional projects, I politely explained that my current workload was already quite full. I wasn't being defiant, I was simply establishing the boundaries that healthy employees are supposed to maintain. The boundaries everyone else had always maintained while I carried the extra weight. The effects became apparent within days. Isabelle, meanwhile, was discovering the gap between theoretical knowledge and practical application. The sophisticated techniques I'd taught her required institutional memory and relationship capital she simply hadn't had time to develop. I watched this unfold with careful attention but no intervention. When she asked for specific help, I reminded her that learning to solve difficult problems independently was an essential skill for senior consultants. "You're incredibly capable, Isabelle," I told her sincerely. "I have complete confidence that you'll figure out the best approach." Gregory began looking increasingly concerned as small problems accumulated into larger issues. Clients who had been satisfied started expressing frustration about delayed responses and incomplete solutions. He approached me during the third week with barely concealed desperation. "Seline, I know you've been maintaining better work-life balance lately, which is admirable," he said carefully, "but we're facing some urgent situations that could really benefit from your expertise." I listened thoughtfully to his list of mounting crises. Each one was a problem I would have solved automatically in the past. "Those do sound challenging," I agreed. "I'm confident the team will find effective solutions." "Isabelle has been doing such impressive work lately." Gregory's expression tightened slightly. "Isabelle is still developing her skills. These situations require someone with more experience." I understood his concern. "Unfortunately, I'm completely committed to my current projects for the next several weeks. Perhaps you could consider bringing in external consultants for the additional capacity." External consultants would cost the company roughly 3 times my salary for the same work. Gregory knew this as well as I did. That afternoon, I received a call that changed everything. Diana Westfield from Apex Strategic Solutions had been trying to reach me for months about a senior consultant position. I'd politely declined her approaches before, valuing stability over opportunity. This time, I listened carefully to her offer. The base salary was 40% higher than my current compensation. The bonus structure was transparent and merit-based, with clear performance metrics. The company culture emphasized professional development and work-life balance. Most importantly, they specialized in exactly the type of complex technical consulting that I found most intellectually engaging. "I'm very interested," I told Diana. "How quickly could we move forward with this conversation?" We scheduled interviews for Thursday and Friday, using personal days I'd accumulated but never taken. By Friday afternoon, Apex Strategic Solutions offered me a position that included a $20,000 signing bonus, a 60% salary increase, and equity participation that could be worth significantly more over time. I asked for the weekend to consider their offer, knowing I'd already made my decision Monday morning. I arrived at the office with a resignation letter in my bag. Gregory intercepted me before I reached my desk. "Seline, we need to talk," he said urgently. "Several major clients have expressed concerns about service quality lately. I think we need to reassess some of our recent project assignments." He was finally ready to acknowledge that his golden intern wasn't prepared. But instead of admitting his mistake, he wanted me to quietly fix the problems. I looked at him, desperate for me to rescue the situation he'd created through his favoritism. And I felt the final piece of my plan sliding into place. "Gregory, I appreciate you bringing these concerns to my attention," I said calmly. "I think this conversation is perfectly timed, actually." I reached into my bag and pulled out the envelope. "I wanted to let you know that I'll be transitioning to a new opportunity. This is my formal resignation letter. My last day will be 2 weeks from today." The color drained from Gregory's face. "Seline, this timing is really difficult," he stammered. "Can we discuss what it would take to retain you? I'm sure we can address any concerns you might have about compensation or advancement opportunities." I handed him the letter with a genuine smile. "I'm grateful for everything I've learned here, Gregory. This decision isn't about dissatisfaction. Sometimes new challenges just align perfectly with your professional goals." He opened the letter, scanning it with growing panic. "You're giving exactly the minimum required notice during our busiest quarter," he said, looking up at me. "Is there any flexibility on your start date with the new company?" "Unfortunately, no. They need someone to begin immediately on a time-sensitive project. That matches my expertise perfectly." This was completely true. Gregory was clearly calculating the impossibility of his situation. Training a replacement would take months. The client crisis needed immediate attention from someone who understood both the technical requirements and the relationship dynamics involved. He was realizing that his decision to give my bonus to Isabelle had created the exact circumstances that made my departure so devastating. "Seline, I want to be completely transparent with you," he said, lowering his voice. "I think there may have been some miscommunication about the quarterly bonus allocation. I'd like to revisit that decision and ensure you receive appropriate recognition for your contributions." I looked at him with genuine sympathy. "Gregory, I truly appreciate that gesture, but my decision isn't connected to the bonus situation. Isabelle absolutely deserved that recognition, and I'm happy she received it." This was the moment I'd been waiting for. The moment when he would understand that his attempt to fix the money wouldn't repair the underlying problem. "Sometimes the best opportunities come from unexpected timing," I continued. "I'm actually grateful that everything worked out exactly as it did." Over the next 2 weeks, I watched the full scope of my departure's impact unfold like a carefully orchestrated symphony. Isabelle approached me on my third-to-last day, looking exhausted and overwhelmed. "Seline, I need to ask you something honestly," she said. "Did you know this would happen when you started teaching me those advanced techniques?" I considered her question carefully. Isabelle had grown significantly, even as she'd struggled. The pressure had revealed her actual capabilities and limitations in ways that gentle development never could have. "I knew you were intelligent enough to handle complex challenges," I told her truthfully. "I also knew you'd need to discover your own approaches to solving difficult problems." She nodded slowly. "I think I understand now why you've been so successful here. It's not just about knowing the right techniques. It's about having the experience to know when and how to apply them." "Exactly," I said. "And now you're building that experience much faster than you would have otherwise." Isabelle had indeed learned more in 4 weeks than she probably would have in 6 months of gradual development. "I'm going to ask Gregory to adjust my responsibilities," she said. "I think I was promoted too quickly, and I want to make sure I'm actually ready before I take on anything this complex again." I felt genuine pride watching her take ownership of her development. Meanwhile, the operational impacts of my departure were becoming impossible to ignore. The client who'd been waiting for their software integration solution had threatened to terminate their contract. The executive board presentation Isabelle had been assigned was postponed twice. Most significantly, 3 other senior consultants approached Gregory, requesting salary discussions. My departure had prompted them to evaluate their own compensation and workload balance. They'd started wondering why they'd been accepting below-market salaries while handling above-average responsibilities. Gregory found himself facing not just the loss of his most productive team member, but a potential exodus of experienced staff. On my final Friday, Gregory requested a private meeting. "Seline, I want you to know that I recognize the mistakes I made," he said. The bonus decision was influenced by factors that shouldn't have been relevant. You deserve that recognition, and I let personal considerations cloud my professional judgment. I appreciated his honesty more than he probably realized. I respect you for acknowledging that, Gregory. Those kinds of decisions are difficult, and I understand the pressures you face. Is there anything I can do to change your mind about leaving? He asked. I think this transition is beneficial for everyone involved, I said finally. You'll have the opportunity to restructure the team in ways that better support long-term success. Isabelle will be able to develop her skills at a more sustainable pace, and I'll be taking on challenges that align perfectly with my professional goals. Can I ask where you're going? Apex Strategic Solutions, I replied. They specialize in the complex technical consulting that I find most engaging. Gregory's expression shifted to something approaching admiration mixed with regret. They're our biggest competitor in the enterprise consulting space, he said quietly. You'll be working on exactly the types of projects that you've always handled best here. That's exactly why the opportunity was so appealing. What Gregory didn't know was that Diana had been recruiting me specifically because Apex had been losing potential clients to our company. My reputation in the industry was strong enough that several enterprise customers had chosen our firm primarily because they wanted to work with me personally. Now those relationships would be transitioning to Apex along with my departure. The irony was perfect. Gregory's decision to give my bonus to someone else had prompted my departure, which would ultimately cost his company far more than $72,000 in lost revenue and competitive disadvantage. On my last day, Isabelle organized a small farewell gathering. The entire team attended, including Gregory, who looked genuinely sad to see me leave. Seline has been the backbone of this department, he announced to the group. Her professionalism, expertise, and mentorship have contributed to every success we've achieved over the past 4 years. I looked around the room at colleagues who had become friends, at Isabelle, who had grown so much in such a short time, and at Gregory, who was finally understanding the cost of his choices. Thank you all for making this such a meaningful experience, I said. I'm excited to see how everyone continues growing and achieving amazing things. 3 months later, I received a LinkedIn message from Isabelle. She'd been promoted to a senior consultant position, but with appropriate preparation and support this time. I wanted to thank you for pushing me to grow faster than I thought possible, she wrote. I know those weeks were overwhelming, but I learned more about myself and my capabilities than I would have in years of gradual development. Gregory had reached out as well, asking if I'd be willing to provide consulting services for specific projects. His department had recovered, but they'd restructured their approach to talent development and compensation to prevent similar situations. As for me, Apex Strategic Solutions exceeded every expectation. The work was intellectually stimulating. The culture genuinely supported professional growth, and the compensation reflected the value I brought to complex client challenges. Most importantly, I'd learned something crucial about my own worth. For years, I'd been so focused on proving myself through extra effort and uncomplaining reliability that I'd become undervalued and taken for granted. The bonus situation had forced me to recognize that my contributions were significant enough to command respect and appropriate recognition. The revenge wasn't about destroying anyone or causing permanent damage. It was about stepping away from a situation where my value wasn't recognized and allowing natural consequences to demonstrate what that value actually was. Gregory learned that favoritism creates exactly the kind of instability that strong performers won't tolerate. Isabelle learned to assess her own readiness before accepting responsibilities beyond her current capabilities. The department learned to structure compensation and recognition systems that actually reflected merit rather than personal relationships. I learned that sometimes the most powerful response to unfairness isn't fighting against it, but simply refusing to enable it anymore. The $72,000 bonus that started this whole situation turned out to be the cheapest lesson Gregory's department ever received about the cost of losing their most valuable contributors. And honestly, watching everything unfold exactly as I'd anticipated was more satisfying than any amount of money could have been. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt undervalued or overlooked despite your contributions, please hit the like button and share your own experiences in the comments. Sometimes we need to hear that other people understand what it feels like to watch connections matter more than competence. Subscribe for more stories about finding your worth and refusing to accept less than you deserve. Because your value doesn't depend on other people recognizing it. You get to decide when enough is enough.